Hey guys, Digital Lifestyle here, back from another video. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but Russian hackers target thousands of British flights in extremely dangerous attacks on navigation systems. Another article here. Thousands of flights to and from Europe affected by suspected Russian jamming. Do you know what? This sounds like gaslighting all the time. They keep doing this. And do you know what? I don't know if it's true or not, but they always need a reason and they've always said can it not? Why can't it not be somebody else that's doing this? Why can it not be anybody else but Russia? This is the narrative they keep wanting to push. Always Russia, always the bad guys. There's no proof. There's no proof, but yet they will say these things, and people will believe stupidly. Because why? I've got a video to play you, but I'll preface that with this. What is the 702? They want to bring back the 702 process, right? And the FISA section 702 is an indispensable tool in the FBI's effort to protect against national security threats. It authorizes the targeted collection of foreign intelligence information from non-US persons located abroad. So that means they can spy on anyone, non-US abroad, anybody. Didn't they get called out by Angela Merkel and Europe for doing this exact thing? People were pissed off with this, yeah? Now they want to bring it back. Video I'll play in a minute. They said this was supposed to be expired in 2023. I have no idea if they reenacted it, but they are calling for it to be reenacted. Anyway, guys, if you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. Watch the video to the end. Take care of yourselves. Have a great day.
An absolutely indispensable tool that Congress can give us in our fight against foreign adversaries is the reauthorization of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It is critical in securing our nation, and we are in crunch time with our 702 authority set to expire next week. So let me be clear, failure to reauthorize 702 or gutting it with some new kind of warrant requirement would be dangerous and put Americans' lives at risk.
Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act was enacted to make it easier for the government to address foreign threats. Targeting Americans is prohibited, but intelligence agencies have used Section 702 to spy on hundreds of thousands of Americans every year. And this week, it's looking to get a lot worse. Elizabeth Goitein of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice does a great job of explaining it and sounding the alarm. Buried in the Section 702 reauthorization bill passed by the House on Friday is the biggest expansion of domestic surveillance since the Patriot Act. Under current law, the government can compel electronic communication service providers that have direct access to communications to assist the NSA in conducting Section 702 surveillance. Companies like Verizon and Google must turn over the communications of targets, which officially must be foreigners overseas, but this has been abused to spy on Americans.
Your data is at risk of being stolen and spied on. That's why we recommend and use private internet access. Private internet access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection through their world-class server infrastructure, which makes your information shielded and bulletproof. Private internet access has had an audit done conducted by a Big Four firm. As they know, VPN use is tied to trust, letting you be sure their 100% no-logs policy is safe and secure. Streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and more have different library options based on where you are located, and some shows cannot be accessed if you are not located in the region. Private internet access helps you overcome these restrictions by giving you the option to change your IP address to one of their 91 countries to choose from, and all 50 US states, allowing you to gain access to websites and services that are only available in those locations. Private internet access is available for all platforms, and you can use one private internet access subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. Get 83% off plus 4 months free of private internet access using our link for a limited time. Click the link in the description or visit piavpn.com/anonymousofficial and protect all your devices.
By changing the definition of electronic communications surveillance provider, an amendment offered by House Intel committee leaders and passed by the House vastly expands the universe of entities that can be compelled to assist the NSA. If the bill becomes law, any company or individual that provides any service whatsoever may be forced to assist in NSA surveillance, as long as they have access to equipment on which communications are transmitted or stored. When the amendment was first unveiled, civil liberties advocates noted that the provision would encompass hotels, libraries, and coffee shops, and so they were excluded. But the vast majority of U.S. businesses remain fair game, including barbershops, laundromats, fitness centers, hardware stores, and any small business that provides Wi-Fi to their customers via routers. It also includes commercial landlords that rent out offices, which would target journalists, lawyers, financial advisors, healthcare providers, and anyone renting commercial office space. The amendment even includes service providers who come into our homes, such as house cleaners, plumbers, and IT service providers, all of whom could be forced to serve as surrogate spies and be required to give the NSA direct access. And none of them would be allowed to tell anyone. They would be under a gag order and would face heavy penalties if they failed to comply. Having wholesale access to domestic communications, the NSA would then be on the honor system to retain only the communications of approved foreign targets. And we know from past experience that they cannot be trusted to do this. The Senate is scheduled to vote on the bill this week. Section 702 expires on April 19th, but the Biden administration has obtained FISA court approval to continue Section 702 surveillance until April of 2025.
Every border you cross, every purchase you make, every call you dial, every cell phone tower you pass, friend you keep, article you write, site you visit, subject line you type, and packet that you route is in the hands of a system whose reach is unlimited and whose safeguards are not. The important thing from that is that they didn't stop. And this brings us to today. They're doing it even more now. They changed their laws to try to shake themselves loose from having to answer to the courts. And the question that we need to consider when looking to the future is, if government is the great teacher of the people, as has been said, what lesson did the rest of the world, particularly corporations, draw from that impunity for the lawbreaking, and the policy assumption that has been projected to everyone that this is something that's necessary and legitimate to do? Not only are they going to do it regardless of what courts say, they're going to do it even more. Well, 10 years is a long time in technology. If we were all being ingested into a system, and the reality back then was that it would end up on the desk of a person like me who had a front end called X-key score, that was the code name for it, which was the kind of Google for size. I and many others had to manually go into this distributed federated query system, as it's called, because the data is so vast and it's in so many places, you can't move it from this data center over there back to the NSA without everyone realizing what's happening. So what we do is we send what's small, the query, what you're looking for, to all the tablets all around the world, basically. And then they process it for you against all this, and then they send back just the results. And this is where we see decentralization being used for sort of evil rather than good. It's a centralized system. It's a decentralized kind of query. Now, they were trying to automate this in the crudest of ways. Just they had their own sort of almost bash scripting type system where they would go, all right, anything that matches this grep statement, we'll try to pull off the wire. What if we didn't need to do queries? We didn't have to move the shell game around. What if the data centers answered the questions for us? What if they took out the constraint, which was how many people like me could they find and clear and get to keep the secret? But it was done automatically, algorithmically, by machines that would never betray them, right? Well, the secret would have been kept forever. And that's where we're headed. We're seeing more power concentrated into fewer hands. And we're seeing companies, corporations, and other states that didn't have this technology 10 years ago, but now they do, go, well, why don't we do this too? they can't complain too loudly if they're doing it more than anyone, right? And so now we see Amazon, Facebook, everybody, Microsoft, your insurance agency, the hospital, all looking at trying to adopt these same capabilities. And I think the question is, as it moves from ads onto other things, most people cue onto the things that are photogenic, that you can immediately sort of arrest and grasp and visualize, which are pictures, facial recognition. You think about security cameras, you think about license plate readers, and that's true, that's there. The driver's license databases, access to them is sold by many states, whether it's to researchers and academics, whether it's to private companies. Your passport is shifted through the wire, processed by these third-party companies to get a visa. All those pictures on your social media. The idea here is that the face is presumed to be a universally unique identifier. And there's nothing more that computers love, programmers love, and people who run large databases and collect data sets love, than being able to uniquely identify actors within a set. That's your phone number, right? That's your email address. No one else has these. They belong to you. Usernames are not universally unique across the web, but they are on a service. They are on a platform. And I think the thing that you think about the implications that we haven't hit but are about to hit hard is we need to move away from this because when the machines start doing the thinking for the people and they're reasoning probabilistically the same way that I would reason probabilistically, right? But there is some kind of accountability, or at least we hope there's some kind of accountability. It's not true, but the system depends on the idea that there's accountability. What happens when the machine starts making mistakes? I see these new sort of large models, AI models, we'll call them, being closed off, even when they were previously opened. Like naming a company OpenAI is a cruel joke, right? Since they refuse to provide public access to their training data, their models, their weights, and so on. But they're a leader in the space. They're being rewarded. They're being rewarded for antisocial behavior. And it's not just them. Stable Diffusion, which I think is really a phenomenal project and super interesting. It's the most important project for creating large generative image models. They tripled their training set from version 1.5 to 2.0 because they were worried about moral panics and being accused of this, that, and the other, instead of taking sort of a principled position that, look, the liability is distinct between the people who create the model and the people who use the model, which we know in America already works because you see it with guns, right? And if they aren't regulating guns, they're not going to regulate AI in the same way. But the question is, so what do we do about this when we see to train a model takes, $100 million of equipment, compute, you're renting it, you're beg borrowing, stealing it, whatever. And a single one of these cards costs $10,000, whereas the consumer GPUs by companies like NVIDIA are being in the same way purposefully crippled to have low amounts of VRAM, much lower than should be in an iterative model, given the next gen model, rather, given how cheap this stuff is now. But they're intentionally getting it off and saying we'll sell these at $10,000 a pop to anybody who'll buy them, knowing that they're selling shovels in a gold rush, right? And the question for the policy prescription legislatively, it's very difficult, particularly for somebody who comes from a more libertarian approach to this. Because you start going, all right, the idea between surveillance and surveillance is this idea that you can watch the people above them. But the reality of the world we live in is that corporations and governments are observing us more and more. We are becoming more legible to them, and we are becoming more malleable before them. Because if they can observe enough of your behavior, they can predict your behavior, particularly as these valuables or as these models become more advanced. And it doesn't have to be 10 out of 10 times, but everybody understands you have a favorite item on the menu. You likely have a favorite seat in the restaurant. You view the tabs in your browser in a certain order. You don't even type in the website name, you just refresh on it or click to the other one. When your browser closes and then it reopens, that behavior is unique to you. How many people in the world do you think share the exact set of browser tabs that you have open? People don't understand that 1 million is a very small number to a machine. And so when you have this delta in legibility, you have this delta in capability, how are we going to control the institutions that are controlling us if we don't have access to similar capabilities? And I think we're starting to see, and I haven't seen it really pick up yet, but people are going to be raising the red flag of a kind of software communism, where we need to declare that models must be open. And for example, companies could still be granted an exclusive commercial usage right, a kind of license for a limited period, the same way that copyright would. So, for example, or with pharmaceutical protection and generics, as long as they follow the rules and publish their models freely for individual academic or non-commercial use. But what if they don't? Right, and they try to exploit the model in secret, contra the public interest. That's when you start getting this kind of revolutionary thinking, which again, I'm not sure I agree with, but you can certainly understand the reasoning behind it. Where they go, look, then their commercial monopoly gets invalidated, and the models could be taken by any means necessary, whether it's stolen, in a kind of information wants to be freeway locally released, or compelled by a state that has, those kind of values. And, if this were the case, actually, it would be incredible, because this idea that the government is not agile is, of course, true. They are always, 3 to 5 years behind. But when they come hard, come with a lot of resources. They catch up quickly. And because of the delta in resources and the veil of secrecy, they tend to actually have extraordinary capabilities that are kept in secret for a very long time. If we knew what they could do, and we had access to similar capabilities, maybe we could finally start getting some public value out of these spy agencies. Maybe they could stop spying on the public and start spying for the public. That would be a net good.
I'm not saying this because I'm some partisan hack. I mean, the other side would tell you this. There's a whole of government opposition to crypto today. And it's not an accident, and it's not based on the nuances of securities law. It's a policy judgment that was made at the time of the election. And what I mean by that is that a thing that happened in the 2020 election that's not as widely known as it should be is when then candidate Biden was running for office, and if you remember, he lost the first 2 primaries. So he was not looking like a likely winner. And he went into the South Carolina primary, which was the best chance he had of locking up, delegates going into the next Super Tuesday campaign. Elizabeth Warren at the time was a strong candidate. She was seen as a very viable opposition candidate to him. There was basically Biden, Sanders, and Warren. Warren struck a deal with the Biden campaign during the South Carolina primary. This is a true story, which basically said, listen, in exchange, because this was her talking, I don't see a path to raising enough money to get through Super Tuesday, even if I might come in second here, blah, blah, blah. So I tell you what, I will drop out and I will endorse you if you will agree that I get decision-making authority over the financial agencies. So I get to pick the heads of those agencies, and those agencies are going to agree to implement an agenda that I have. And this makes sense, right? Because her whole career was about consumer finance and consumer bankruptcies. She cares more about these issues than any other single person. And that deal was struck. So she endorsed Biden. Biden then became the nominee and won the election. What you see today, therefore, it's not Gary Gensler reading the securities laws and saying, regrettably, Ethereum might meet the standards to be a security. He was put there to fight crypto. Right? Remember, Elizabeth Warren has a campaign apparatus called the Anti-Crypto Army. That's her name, not mine. So too with the acting controller of the currency, another person who was picked from the Warren world to come and enact that policy at the OCC. So too, a number of other key people, specifically including the head of the SEC, Gary Gensler. What you would see in a Trump administration is something that would be very, very different. So first of all, and I take a little bit of personal credit for this, it's not all me, but I think I was the first person to start this conversation. I spent a lot of time with the Senate Banking Committee Republicans and the House Financial Services Republicans, talking to them about the...
Over time, your money gets you less. Does Bitcoin? Well, in 2012, 1 Bitcoin bought you this much pizza. In 2016, this much pizza. In 2020, this much pizza. And in 2024, well, you get the gist. Roughly every 4 years, the future supply of Bitcoin is reduced. So historically, you get more, not less.
So what is money, and how does it get value? Paper money has value because someone says so. Bitcoin is different. It's like digital gold. It has value for many of the reasons gold does, but that's only the start. Gold originally had value because it was scarce, but no one knows how much is left to dig up. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a limited supply, 21 million, and it can never be counterfeited. Every day, more people are buying it, making it more scarce, making it more valuable. But you can also split it up, because every Bitcoin is divisible by a lot. Each Bitcoin can be split into 100 million smaller units. So if one Bitcoin was worth $1 million, the smallest unit, called a Satoshi, would be worth 1 penny. So you can send whatever amount you want, and no one can stop you, because no central authority controls it. So unlike with banks and credit card companies, you don't need approval to use it, and no one can decide to just print more or shut it down. It puts the power back in all our hands. Bitcoin lets you control your finances. Kraken lets you buy Bitcoin. Kraken, see what crypto can be.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.